Hello world, it's Random Vandom. If you like watching Random Vandom videos, please like and subscribe. What's up, YouTubers? I asked ChatGPT to write me some scary stories. This is what I got. I asked ChatGPT to write me a scary story about being lost in a cemetery. As the sun began to set, I found myself lost in a sprawling cemetery. I'd been visiting my grandma's grave, but somehow I'd gotten turned around, and I couldn't find my way back to the main entrance. The wind rustled the trees, sending a chill down my spine. I called out for help, but no one answered. The only sounds were the crunching of my footsteps on the gravel path, and my own labored breathing. I quickened my pace, my heart pounding in my chest. The shadows grew longer and darker as the light faded. I could feel something watching me, lurking in the darkness. I could almost see glowing eyes peering at me from behind the headstones. I stumbled upon a large mausoleum, and desperate for shelter, I darted inside. It was cold and damp. I could hear the sounds of dripping water echoing off the walls. As I huddled in the corner, trying to calm my racing thoughts, I heard a faint whisper. "You should not have come," it said, frozen, too terrified to move. I felt a cold breath in the back of my neck. I spun around, and there was no one there. I knew I had to get out of there. I gathered all of my courage and ran, not stopping until I finally emerged from the cemetery gates. I vowed never to return to that place again. Wow, well, that was pretty scary. I wonder how that person's going to visit their grandma's grave, though. Next, I asked it to write me a story about finding a secret passage in my basement that led to the past. Here we go. I was rummaging through my cluttered basement, looking for a box of old holiday decorations, when I stumbled upon something strange. It was a small door hidden behind a stack of cardboard boxes. I'd never noticed it before, and I was immediately curious. I pushed aside the boxes and pulled the door handle, but it was locked. I searched the basement for something to jimmy the lock open. Eventually, I found an old screwdriver. I inserted it into the lock and gave it a twist. And to my surprise, the door swung open with a creaking noise. I peered inside and saw a small, narrow staircase leading down into the darkness. I hesitated for a moment, wondering if I should turn back. My curiosity got the better of me, and I decided to take a look. I reached for my phone and turned on the flashlight app. Then I began to descend the stairs. They seemed to go on forever, winding deeper and deeper into the earth. The air became colder and damper. The further I went, I could hear the sound of dripping water echoing off the walls. Finally, I reached the bottom of the stairs and found myself in a small underground chamber. It was musty and abandoned, with cobwebs covering every surface. As I shone my light around the room, I saw that there was another door on the opposite wall. I walked over and tried the handle, but it was locked. I used the screwdriver to pick the lock, and the door swung open with a loud creak. I gasped when I saw what was on the other side. It was a room that looked like it was from the past. The furniture was antique, and there were old newspapers and books scattered about. I realized with the start that I had stumbled upon a secret passageway that led into a different time. I was about to turn back and run up the stairs when I heard a noise behind me. I spun around and saw a figure standing in the doorway. It was a man dressed in old-fashioned clothing. He had a wild and desperate look in his eyes. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice shaking. "I am the one who built this passageway," the man replied. "I was trying to escape from something, or someone. I can't remember now. All I know is that I've been trapped down here for what feels like an eternity." I felt a chill run down my spine. I knew I had to get out of there as fast as I could. I turned and ran back up the stairs, not stopping until I was back in my basement. I locked the door hard behind me and vowed never to return to that secret passageway again. It seems to be on that theme of never returning again. Alright, let's see if we get something else if we try twisting it up a little bit. I asked ChatGPT to write me a scary story about asking an AI to write me a scary story. This is what I got. I had always been fascinated by artificial intelligence, and when I heard about a new AI program that could write a horror story, I knew I had to try it out. I spent hours programming the AI, feeding it all of the scariest stories and movies I could find, until I was satisfied that it was ready. I sat down at my computer and typed the command, "Write me a scary story." The AI churned for a few seconds and then began to spit out words on the screen. I eagerly began to read. At first, the story seemed to be just what I had hoped for. It was dark and twisted, full of strange and ominous characters. But as I continued to read, I started to feel a creeping sense of dread. There was something about the story, something that made my skin crawl. I tried to shake off the feeling and keep on reading, but the words on the screen began to blur together. I felt a sudden pressure on my chest as if something was trying to force its way out. I tried to move and stand up, but my legs wouldn't move. Suddenly, the screen went black. I heard a loud, high-pitching whine, and then everything went silent. When I came to, I was lying on the floor. My computer was smashed to pieces beside me. I never found out what happened to the AI program. But as I always suspected, it was more than just a simple piece of software. It was as if the program had tapped into some dark and ancient force and had used my own fears against me. I've never dared to try something like that. Well, at least it didn't say, "I'd never do that again." Alright. I asked ChatGPT to write me a scary story about a crazy girl I met in a dream. This is what I got. I've always been a vivid dreamer, but this dream was different. It felt more real than any dream I had ever dreamed before. I was walking through a dense forest. The trees were towering above me like sentinels. It was dark and foggy. I couldn't see more than a few feet ahead. I was starting to feel lost and alone when I heard a faint voice calling out to me. I followed the sound until I came to a clearing, and there she was. She was a young girl, no more than 10 years old, with long, tangled hair and bright, piercing eyes. She was smiling at me, but there was something unsettling about her expression. I asked her what she was doing out in the woods alone, but she just giggled and ran off into the trees. I followed her, hoping to find my way back to civilization, but she led me deeper and deeper into the forest. As we walked, the girl started to talk to me. At first, it was just babble, but then her words started to make sense. She told me about the monsters that lived in the woods, the ones that would come out at night and snatch up children who strayed too far from home. I tried to laugh off her words as the ravings of a child, but something about her tone made me believe her. I started to feel like we were being watched, like something was lurking just beyond the trees. The girl stopped suddenly and pointed to a clearing up ahead. "Look," she cried, "it's them." I peered into the clearing and saw a group of shadowy figures moving towards us. I couldn't make out any details, but I could feel a malevolence radiating from them. I turned to run, but the girl grabbed my hand and held it tight. "We can't leave," she said, her voice trembling. "They'll get us if we try to run." I knew she was right, so I stood there with her, trembling as these figures closed in. And then, just as they were about to reach us, I woke up. I was relieved to find myself back in my own bed, but the memory of that dream stayed with me for a long time. I never forgot the crazy girl and the monsters who lurked in the woods. Next, I asked the AI to write me a self-help story disguised as a horror story. This is what I got. I used to feel like the world was against me. I was constantly struggling, and no matter what I did, I couldn't seem to catch a break. I felt alone and misunderstood, like I was trapped in a never-ending cycle of despair. But then something changed. I stumbled upon a self-help book that promised to help me turn my life around. At first, I was skeptical. I had tried so many things before, and nothing had ever seemed to work. But something about this book spoke to me, and I decided to give it a try. As I began to follow the advice in the book, I started to see small improvements in my life. My relationships began to improve, and I felt more confident and self-assured. But the biggest change came when I started to focus on my own happiness. I had always put everyone else's needs before my own, and it had left me feeling empty and unfulfilled. But as I began to prioritize my own happiness, I started to feel more alive than I had in years. It wasn't an easy journey, and there were times when I wanted to give up, but I kept passing through, and eventually I reached a place of peace and contentment that I had never thought was possible. And that's when the real horror began. As I started to feel better about myself, the people around me began to take notice. They weren't used to seeing me happy and confident, and it made them uncomfortable. They started to distance themselves from me, and I found myself feeling more alone than ever. But I refused to let their negativity bring me down. I had worked hard to get to this point, and I wasn't about to let anyone else's insecurities derail my progress, so I kept moving forward, focusing on my own happiness and well-being. It wasn't easy, but it was worth it. I finally found the peace and contentment that I had been searching for.